The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Welcome. We had a false start there. Welcome to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. I am Shannon Penrod, and Nancy Allspaw Jackson is not here. She needed to take care of some stuff with her and her son, and sometimes that happens. And as I've said to people, one of the guests that we had scheduled for the show today could not be here because of a family issue, and what I said to them was family comes first. And we have enough things to talk about with, I mean, I always prefer it when Nancy is here, but we have enough things to talk about. So thrilled to be here with you, and remember that we're going to be with you throughout this entire hour talking about autism, and that you guys can be writing in your questions, comments, and concerns. In fact, Traven is going to show you right now some of the different ways that you can connect with us. While he does that, I'm going to remind you that our homepage is autism-live.com, and when you go there, there's a lot to do. Please, on some of your search engines, you have to click the live button for the live show to pop up. Other ones, it will do it automatically. The chat is now at the bottom of the page, and you click that and it opens up and you can write into us. That shows up here on our screen. Of course, you can write into us on YouTube, excuse me, and Facebook. Whichever way flips your switch, right? We try to be as available as we can in as many different ways as we can. All right, so we always like to start with In the News here on LTA, and we've got a couple of interesting things for you. The first one is a new study that was recently published in JAMA, and it's JAMA Pediatrics, excuse me, the Journal of American Medical Association Pediatrics, I believe is what it stands for. And it is discussing when is it most beneficial to screen for autism. Right now, the American Academy of Pediatrics recommends that every pediatrician screen for autism between the ages of 18 and 24 months, right? That's sort of been the party line for a while. Although we were all a little bit fatutzed, and that's putting it mildly, in 2016 when the U.S. Prevention Task Force said that it couldn't recommend a certain time for screening, that it couldn't find enough evidence that pediatricians needed to be screening for autism at a specific time. I'm still dumbfounded by that and want to find who's tied to the money to that, because that is so out of this stratosphere, not what anyone thinks. I don't know how they came to that conclusion. Anyone who knows anything about autism does not agree with them. In any case, please challenge me on that. If there's somebody who does agree with them and why, I'd love to have that discussion. In any case, this new study has shown that actually that children as young as 14 months can reliably be screened and diagnosed with autism, which means that they could potentially start their early intervention, which we know is the key to everything, as much as 10 months earlier than before was previously thought advisable. So this was a study that was done looking at a large number of toddlers, that they screened them between the ages of 12 and 36 months old, and then tracked how many of them actually then converted to autism, to get an idea of like, when are we the most accurate? And what they found, and by the way, they did blood and urine tests as well, but what they found was that at 14 months, with 84% accuracy, they were able to identify which children were later going to be diagnosed with autism. 84%. I mean, that's pretty accurate. And when we look at how much a child can learn in 6 months, oh my gosh. And if you're an autism parent, how much your child can regress in 6 months. Boy, that's a song that I frequently talk about, because my son regressed into autism, and what we lost in a 6-month time period, we just lost him in that 6-month time period. And you know, to have caught it earlier, the point of the whole thing is that wherever you start teaching someone, if you start teaching someone at 2 years old and they are functioning at an 18-month-old, then you only have a couple of months to catch them up and you can stop the slide. You really can with good quality ABA. That's been well documented. I don't think there's any question about that, because it's so well documented that insurance now pays for it. But it really is key to get that early diagnosis. And shame on the U.S. Prevention Services Task Force for not recognizing that all children need to be screened. And I hope that the American Academy of Pediatrics will look at this study and change their recommendation for 18 to 24 months. But I'm saying this out to all of you parents. If you know people who have children, start encouraging them to get screened at 14 months. Studies show that's very effective. And by the way, this article, you can find it in CNN. There you go. Okay, another article saying that this is a team out of the University of Washington. We all often really love their research. They got a lot of really great things happening there for autism, but sometimes, you know, I like to call it the big duh, right? So they've got a new study that shows that recess can be a struggle for kids on the autism. Everyone, the big duh. But let's think about why. And because if we think about why, then we can think about what we need to do to be able to help it and fix it. So just from a sensory standpoint, and this is one of the things that this article talks about, is that, you know, you've gone from this very structured environment where you're sitting in a chair and noise level is kept at a certain thing, right? And then you know, release the hounds and they all go out on the playground, and the rules are all different, and our kids are very rule oriented, and the noise level and the sensory issues are all different, right? So that's really difficult. But then there is the whole social component on the playground. And we know, we just were talking about this on Wednesday with Sue Cho, that for kiddos on the autism spectrum, it's not that they don't want to interact socially, it's that it's hard for them, that they don't know what the rules are, they don't know how to interact. And there are so many different circumstances that they, you know, social circumstances are hard for everyone, right? But for kiddos on the spectrum, they're particularly hard. So they have found that, in fact, that it can be something that is absolutely not enjoyable to be in recess. So some of the things that they are recommending from this research is that kids who spend time with other kids on the playground have a better time, that they enjoy that they... Her team found that this particular researcher, who is Jill Locke, discovered that a good portion of their time with other kids was really pleasing finding. Her team found that children with autism tended to interact with their neurotypical peers on the periphery, either talking to them or playing with toys on the jungle gym or in games like tag. Younger children with autism initiated conversations more often than those in later grades, and when they did strike a conversation, they often did so during a game or other joint activities. So finding ways that are reinforcing for them to be with other people. She says, think outside the box. Some of our kids really like to sing. That seems to be a solitary activity, but you could make the song a part of tag. And when the song ends, that's when you have to freeze. I absolutely love that. She says, playing on the jungle gym may also seem solitary, but teachers could add new elements to make the activity more of an obstacle course or a relay race for everyone. So turning a solitary activity into a group activity makes it more successful for the person who's on the autism spectrum and definitely more fun. We want it to be reinforcing, right? The supports I commonly hear about are reactive because the recess environment is not universally designed for inclusion, noting that some schools assign instructional assistants to accompany a student on the playground, but that's really like putting a Band-Aid on a systemic problem. And they recommend that school train all adults who supervise children on best practice in special education. Yeah, a lot of people don't have an aide on the playground. A lot of times the school decides that that is the time when the aide gets their break. If you are one of those people that have that current situation happening, I really want to encourage you to ask for a recreational assessment. Have a recreational aide come and assess your child to see what kind of support they need on the playground. And once you ask for that, if that is granted, I'm telling you, it's the most luscious, wonderful thing. I didn't even know that a recreational aide existed, but we had one come and assess my son, and you guys, it not only was great for my son, it was great for the entire class and for the entire school, because she went out on the playground and taught them how to play with each other. And she would frequently say to me, you know, the really amazing thing about this is that sometimes your kid isn't the one who needs the most help with this in the group, and that by being there and teaching them all, they all got to benefit from it. Okay, so I also want to point out that there is an article out right now, 12 autism facts that show how our understanding of the disorder has transformed over the last 76 years. And I think it's a really interesting, you know, it goes back to Leo Kanner and the whole infantile autism. I don't necessarily agree with everything in this article. There is a section in here which talks about prevalence and how I lose my patience when people start talking about prevalence and they say, well, we know that it's gone to, you know, 1 in 59, but it may not be that autism is actually increasing. It could just be that diagnosis is better. And, you know, I am not going to argue with you that diagnosis is definitely better, but I don't know how you could ever make a case. I just don't understand when it used to be 1 in 10,000, it's 1 in 59. And, you know, we're going to make the argument that all of those, there really were 1 in 59 back then, and where are all those people? I can see that with some, but it doesn't account for all of it. I just, that logic confounds me. But I think there's some really good information in this article. So it's titled, The 12 Autism Facts That Show How Our Understanding of the Disorder Has Transformed Over the Last 76 Years. It's a good read. I'm encouraging you guys to check it out. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, what was on our agenda, well, first of all, we had a guest who's had to reschedule, and so we will get a chance to bring him to the show another time. But it was on our schedule to talk about summer, because summer is almost here. I know it's like May 3rd, and you're thinking, wait a second, Shannon, I'm not ready for that. But you know what they say, if you fail to plan, then you plan to fail. And that is not an option for those of us who have kiddos who are on the autism spectrum. Summer is the ideal time when you think about, we were talking before about getting kids caught up. And, you know, if a child is age 3, but their abilities are at an age 1.5-year-old, right? And we want to get them caught up. We're going to work as hard as we can, right? But it's really hard to get even that 1.5 years caught up, right? What about the 8-year-old who's functioning at a 5-year-old skill level? We've got 3 years to catch up, right? And they're in school, so we don't have them as many hours to do ABA to get them caught up as possible. And you go, how will we ever catch up? And I'm here to tell you, summer. Summer comes along, and the rest of the kids, go off to the Harry Potter camp, they go to swim camp, they do all of these things. And it's a very well documented thing, the summer slide. And it's not the thing into the pool, right? The summer slide is what actually happens to everyone over the summer. The school teaches them, we get to the end of the year, right? And then they take the summer off, and when they come back in the fall, they've lost on average about 2 months worth of instruction. 2 months. This is typical kids, right? So they take the first 2 months of the year to re-go over the concepts they finished the year with before they launch into the new material. It's just sort of the way education works here in the United States. Well, if that's the case, I don't love that. I'm not a fan of that. The summer slide is not a thing I'm a fan of, except as an autism mom, because that gives us a period of time over the summer to get our kids caught up. While the other kids are regressing 2 months, we're propelling our kids at least 3 months forward, so that when we get into that 2 months of going over things again in school, our kids have the potential to catch up. In some cases, we see kids, depending on how you use your time and your hours, we see kids catch up a year over the summer. It happens. But it can be, I think sometimes parents go, but I want to take the summer off too. So we've got the 5 things that you can do as a parent to do with your child to make them super duper fun, still enjoy the summer, but to help them to get caught up in addition to what your ABA family is doing. So we're going to come back with all of that. We're going to take a break first, but get ready, get out your pen and paper, or just save this video, because I do think that this is some super fabulous information. The 5 ways to stop summer slides. So stick with us. We'll be back in just a few seconds.
Hi, I'm Lisa Ackerman. Welcome back to Talk of Facts. We hear questions all the time, and we want to give you the answers that help make your journey in autism easier and more navigatable. Less than a year ago, we interviewed the top 100 doctors in the United States working with children on the spectrum, and we asked them a question in the cloak of secrecy. What are the top 3 mistakes parents living with autism do? Number 1, and the one that makes me laugh the most, is when they use their physician as a marriage and family therapist. 1, the doctors told me it made them uncomfortable, and 2, they were highly unqualified to provide that type of advice. So the night before your physician appointment with your MAPS doctor, get together with your spouse, significant other, and write out the list of the targets and the agenda that you want to cover at the physician's appointment. Get in sync. Then you'll be definitely spending less time and not making that doctor so uncomfortable. Second thing that was the most common mistakes parents living with autism make is they want to go too fast. And really, you want to pace yourself in the autism journey. We all know that we want to get our kid to be the best they can be and hopefully recover from autism. And what a lot of the doctors have told me is that you want to really pace yourself. 1, to let the labs be your guide. And 2, work with your physician on the prioritization and the delivery of the different medical interventions. The 3rd most common mistake they felt families made was giving up too soon. And what you need to know is they're invested. They're looking at wanting to get the best from your child. But I tell you that when I got that and consolidated the 100 interviews with these physicians, most of the doctors who brought that up had tears in their eyes. They want you to know that they're in the fight with you, and they want you to know that hope is really real. It may take hard work and it may take time, but to not give up and to stay in the game. So let Talka help you. We'll have some more Talka facts for you in the future, real questions and real answers for the autism journey.
Welcome back. So we've been talking about the summer slide, the thing that we want to take a little bit of advantage of by preventing our kids from having it. Summer slide is when kids finish the school year and then they've got that chunk of time, however long it is, off, and then they start the school year again. Well documented in schools that kids, even neurotypical kids, slide backwards. On average about 2 months, which is why at the beginning of the year they take a period of time to review, and this is a terrible, terrible thing. I don't know why we just have gotten into this habit of accepting it in American school systems, but here's the good news. It's time for our kids to get caught up. Kids on the autism spectrum, if they will take advantage of that period of time off, they can get more caught up so that you really can catch up. I've seen kids catch up as much as a year over a summer period if you use it well. Max out your ABA. Do every single ABA hour that you can, but then there's things that you can be doing in the rest of the time as a parent that really will help that trajectory. So we got the 5 tips for summer slide for parents to prevent summer slide and to combat it so that you catch up. I'm going to tell you what the 5 are because I hate when people leave me in anticipation, but then we're going to go into depth and explain each one of them. So you ready? Read, write, draw, build, and splash. Because we want this to be fun, right? But these are educational things that will help our kids with autism to progress. So let's start with reading. I'm older, so we used to have those commercials all the time where they would say reading is fundamental. And it really is. Reading is like a building block for everything. And if we can get a child to read and to enjoy reading, sky's the limit. We know that kids on the autism spectrum tend to have an area of interest that they get very excited about something. They're passionate about something. And when we give a child the ability to read and to comprehend reading, then they will find more information than we can ever dream about that thing, and it will help to propel them to success. But first, we have to make reading fun. And for all of these tips, I want to make it so that no matter what age level, no matter what skill level, you get an idea of where you would start. So let's talk about very young children, first of all. Kids who maybe don't have very many skill level, and reading, you might be thinking, well, I don't see how reading is ever going to happen. Your child might have autism, but also have ADHD symptoms where they're very busy pants, right? Where they want to go and do things. So the first thing that we need to be able to do is to help them to be able to sit long enough to be read to. And it's got to be reinforcing. One of the things that we did with my son very early on, because he was Mr. Busy Pants, we gave him something to hold on to. And it was only, that thing would only be available when we were reading. I don't know why, but for my kid, he loved to hold a cold apple. Man, there was nothing that he enjoyed more than holding a cold apple, and that's the only way I could get him to sit still. For other kids, it might be holding the Buzz Lightyear doll, or there's a squishy, like a pillow or something that they absolutely love to hold. For kids who like the feeling of sensation of pressure, you set up pillows around them and you sit with them and get cozy. For kids who don't, obviously you're going to give them space, but we're setting up this time as a very reinforcing time. If you have to do tickles and then read a page and then do tickles, whatever you have to do to get them to sit, and you start where you are, and it might be 3 words. There are board books that have 3 words on one page, and then you do the tickles or whatever is reinforcing for the kiddo, right? But then you build up to books that have 4 words on the page, right? Maybe you start with 1 word, or even, I love Pat the Bunny, right? Where it's just interactive. And that's the next thing that I want to say, is that make it an experience. We just the other day were at a resource fair, and they had an Usborne book thing there at the table there, and I love their books. They're so smart about the things that they do, and they have lots of young reader books that are interactive. There's a series that they have, it's called It's Not My Whatever. My son had a book that was, That's Not My Dinosaur. But I saw one the other day that was That's Not My Mermaid. And on each page, it says, That's Not My Mermaid. This one has sparkles, or this one's, got stripes or whatever. It's usually something interactive, right? For my son, it was That's Not My Dinosaur. This one has spiky, whatever those things are on them, right? And so we would read that to him, and then we would say, where are the spikes? And he would, point at and touch the spikes. And in the beginning, we had to take his finger and go, look, there are the spikes. And usually whatever it is they want you to notice has some sort of a sensory feel to it, like maybe it's soft or maybe it's crinkly or whatever. So I love the Usborne books. And then they have their whole duck series. And I think this is a better trainer for parents than it is for kids. Because on the book, you know, like the one that we had was Cinderella, and you'd say, you know, this is Cinderella, and she has the three sisters, right? And then we would say to my son, where's the duck? Because they hide a duck on every single page. And he would scan the page looking for the duck. Well, this is what we want. Is now it's interactive and we're getting them to look at the page. Yes, we're getting them to look at the page for the duck, but that will translate later on into looking for other things, which will then transfer into scanning the page. It works. I'm here to tell you it works. But anyway, so having it be interactive, and do you have to have the book with the duck? No. You can take any book and you find something on the page that's identifiable, and you can say, where's the doggy? And then they point to the doggy. One of my favorite children's books is We're Going on a Bear Hunt. And it's this family that says we're going on a bear hunt, right? And there's a dog and there's a baby. So we would look at the first page and I would say, we're going on a bear hunt and we're going to do whatever. And I would, before I turn the page, I would say to my son, where's the doggy? And I would help him to point and I would go, yes, Tickles, it's the doggy, right? Where's the baby? And then I would help him to point. So within a period of time, I would then turn the page and say, where's the doggy? And he would point, Tickles, yes, right? Where's the baby? He'd point. I didn't have to prompt him anymore. Tickles, yes. And the book also then says, we can't go over it, we can't go under it. And then there's some sort of interactive thing. I would make him move with the different things so that it becomes an experience. We want the reading of the book to be an experience. And as you know your child, figure out what would make it that way. Do we need to have all the lights on, or do we create an environment where it's a little bit darker? Do we use a flashlight to read the book, or do we just use the bed lamp? Do we read these on the bed? Do we read this in a chair that's cushy? Like, think to yourself and figure out what is the thing that's going to make this the most exciting, the biggest treat, and do it every day. Every day. For those of you who are having kids that have sleep issues, I really recommend that you set up a bedtime experience that, they have the bath and then we get into the clean jammies, which is always a wonderful thing. And then whatever your ritual is, but then we get to the book reading. Having a child that enjoys being read to leads to a child who is able to sit at circle time, and then is a child who will be able to discover things for themselves. So that's for very small children, right? When you have an older child, the reading can be a very different thing, and it can depend. Now, if your older child is not yet able to sit for a 2-word book, you don't necessarily have to take a child's board book, but you can do just 2 words and then give reinforcement, right? But if you have a child who is older and knows how to read, but you haven't crossed over into the part where they love, love, love books, I gotta tell you, reading to a child on a regular basis, and if your child is 27, I still think that there is a benefit of reading to them. Now, at some point, if you can, it's great, maybe it's that you read a page and then they read the first sentence on the next page when they can read, and you praise them heavily for it, right? Make sure that your reading material is something that jazzes them. If they are really into the Titanic, you get books about the Titanic, right? Start with those things and then branch out into other things, but make the reading itself reinforcing until the reading itself is reinforcing, right? But it's so important. A couple of things that will help you is we're building joint attention when we're reading with someone. So if you're doing the dinosaur, we talked about this the other day, joint attention is when you look at the child and then you look at whatever the thing is you want them to look at, and then you look back at the child with some sort of reaction about the thing, and in the hopes of, and then you point to the thing, get them to look at it, and then do like something that gets them to look at you, so that you're creating this triangle of attention with the book. So don't just sit there and read, right? You got to make eye contact. So you say, and then the dog went into the woods. You're looking at the thing and you're looking at them and go, where's the dog? So I'm looking at the child, and I point towards the book, and the child looks at the dog and I go, yes, that's great. Tickle, 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 right? build that joint attention. You know what that does? That helps with social skills. And if you are reading with and I'm talking about even reading with an older child. Let's say you have an 18-year-old and you're reading the Harry Potter books, same thing. So you read something and you say, so, Harry said to the wizard this, and then you look at the teenager and still, even Harry Potter books sometimes have pictures and things in them. And I encourage you to find those books, go into the bookstore and say, show me a book that has illustrations on a regular basis because I want to be looking at things. I will say this too, and we have this a little bit later, for kiddos who are really into art and have a hard time listening, give them a pen and paper and have them sketch what you're drawing. It keys them into listening. For some kids, that is the whole key to being able to read. But I encourage you with older children who already know how to read to get to the point where they can read out loud on a regular basis. The ability to read out loud and read out loud well, oh my gosh, that opens a whole set of doors, right? And I know that we all want to get to the point where they sit and read a book quietly with themselves, but don't bypass the reading out loud stage. Really encourage them to do that and read with your kids every day until you literally can't. It's a really good thing. If you have a child with anxiety, reading to them can be so helpful. To help them to mellow out and picture something else in their brain while their body is de-stressing. It's a really powerful thing. Reinforce the reading. When you have older kids, set a realistic expectation. If they are already reading on their own, get them the books that they enjoy reading. Don't worry about everybody saying, well, it's a level this and it's a whatever. Make the reading reinforcing. They will want to read the other stuff if they like reading. Almost all public libraries in the United States have a reading program where it's like a sticker system, and if your child goes, they'll ask them to say how many books they want to read, and every time they read a book, they get a sticker, and it reinforces, and you can say, hey, and if you get 5 stickers this month, that we will turn it into this prize, right? That's for the older kids that are, already reading on their own. But whatever age, whatever skill level your child is at, reading is fundamental. And notice the word fun in that, right? It is a building block to everything else, but it should be fun. Make sure you reinforce the fact that they're reading. And if your child is up to grade level on reading, you will see that it pulls all of the other things up as well. It's a basic skill level. So that is number 1. We're going to take a short break and come back with number 2. Don't go anywhere.
Do you provide care services to someone with autism? Recently, more and more children are being diagnosed with the condition and getting the support they need as awareness grows. But what happens to these children as they grow up? It's estimated that over 500,000 youth with autism will turn 18 in the next decade, and they'll be faced with a very difficult reality. As children with autism grow up, their services start to disappear or become very difficult to access. Things like medical care, mental health counseling, vocational training, and more. All services that are still desperately needed. The loss of support that youth with autism face as they grow up is so severe that it's referred to in the autism community as falling off a cliff. Adults with autism need the same level of support they had as children to avoid falling off the services cliff. Introducing Skills Living, the web-based software designed specifically to help transitioning youth and adults with autism so they can avoid the cliff and instead fly to success. With Skills Living, help your learner with autism develop the skills they need in all the critical areas of adult life, including self-control, planning, and problem-solving, effective communication, performing life skill tasks for independent living, acquiring and maintaining employment or other meaningful activities, developing and maintaining social skills and relationships, accessing transportation and public services, and being safe. Skills Living includes a comprehensive assessment, a data collection mobile app, behavior intervention plan builder, and automatic progress reporting. It also provides a complete curriculum addressing 16 key areas, spanning the entire range of functioning adulthood. Skills Living is easy to use and can be implemented by schools, parents, and autism service providers. Call or click today for your free demo and see how Skills Living can help your learner with autism avoid the cliff and instead reach their fullest potential. Skills Living. Wish, learn, become.
Welcome back to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. We're going through the 5 steps to prevent summer slide and to help get our kids caught up. And these are things that we can do as parents that really maximize the summer hours. But don't forget, first max all of the ABA hours you can possibly do. This is a great time to get our kids caught up. So tip number 2 is write. Now, as we've said before, we want to cover all ages and all skill levels. So let's start with very young babies. And you're like, my baby can't write, and my baby shouldn't be able to write. You know, he's a year and a half old. We're not working on essays, Shannon, right? But the truth of the matter is you should be working on writing skills with a 1.5-year-old. You absolutely should, because you want to work on the pincer grasp and the tripod grasp. So with very young children, the first thing that we want to do is make sure that their ability to do this and hold something works well. And one of the, you can do this with all kinds of toys and all kinds of fun, but one of the easiest things to do it with is with raisins. If you put, they have to be past the age of having a choking hazard, right? Or things like the cereal that's usually in the shape of an O, and there's different brands that you can do that. Make sure it's something really healthy, non-GMO. But you put them on the high chair tray, and they have to pick them up to eat them. Now, it's fun for them because they enjoy the eating, and it's also fun to pick up and be in control of what you eat. Remember, they've had spoons stuck in their face. They like the anonymity of and the autonomy, I think that's the word I want, of being able to pick up their food and feed themselves. So they're going to do that with the pincer grasp because that's almost the only way that you can pick up with a raisin, right? And we really want to encourage that as much as possible. So when a child is older, and again, past a choking hazard, using beads, and you'll see at the toy store, they have those old-fashioned toys that everybody's like, what are those old-fashioned toys and why are they good for us? But anything, those lacing toys that have the beads on them, and a lot of Melissa and Doug toys are really good with this. They have those cards that are animals, and then they have all these lacing threads, and you have to poke the lace through the hole and then pull it out. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're working on the pincer grasp, right? Everybody goes, oh, that's a sewing toy. No, that's a handwriting building skill toy right there, and it's a fabulous thing. And kids like them. They're not going to like them forever, but there's a specific time when they're younger where being able to do that is, and make sure you're reinforcing it, right, is great. And also threading beads onto the string. A lot of those toys come with that as well. Do it with them. Don't expect them to do it. And if it's not reinforcing for them in the beginning, if it's not fun for them, make it fun. And you can make things like that fun. You can be silly with it. You can be poking things through and being like, oh, I can't do it. Can you show me? And they'll help you to do it. Make it fun. If you need to power pack it with other things, do. Put other things in the environment that make it fun. If there is a certain kind of music that your kid likes to listen to, you can put that on. If there's a certain snack that they like, they won't be able to do that endlessly, but you can take a cookie and break it up into 30 little squares, and every time they poke something through and pull it through, they get a little pop of the cookie in their mouth, and it's like, yay, we're doing praise, and we're giving a primary reinforcer, which is what food is, and we're teaching them that this is a fun skill. And you'll find that you can then fade back the cookie and they will still enjoy it. You'll be working on that pincer grasp. So then after the pincer grasp, I'm looking for a pen here, comes the tripod grasp, because this is how we appropriately hold a pen. Now, those big fat crayons that they get for very small kids, and then kids hold it like this and they color like this. That is, that's not harmful to a child, but that's not what we want to work on. What we want to build is this tripod grasp. And the way that we do that is we transition away from the big crayons when we're working on it. I'm not saying don't ever give them big crayons, but just when we're working on writing, we give them the regular size crayons, and what you do is you peel the wrapper completely off of them, because that makes them a little bit harder to hold. Don't know why, less reinforcing too. So you peel that off, and then you break them into smaller bits, like half, right? Or you can get those golf pencils, because you can't hold a golf pencil like this and write. It's too hard. So it forces them to be in the tripod grasp. Now, if you have an older child, and we're going to talk more about that in a minute, but if you have an older child who is not doing the tripod grasp, there are a million OT grips that go on a pencil that encourage the tripod grasp. I would encourage you not to just order one online, unless that's the only way you can get them. I would encourage you to find the teacher supply store near you and to take an afternoon and go to it and do a whole bunch of things there. But one of the things, they will have a section that's just pencil grips. And they're not very expensive, maybe, 50 cents, some of them, and I'm sure they go up from there. But play with them, try them, put them on a pencil, have your child try, see what they like, have them pick out the one that they like if they can, if that's a possibility, so that they will be reinforced by it. They have ones that vibrate, that, they have everything under the sun, you guys. So, but we want to be working on that tripod grasp. The other thing, and we gave these away at an event that we were just at, Wiki sticks are fabulous. Wiki sticks are like bendaroos. If you have bendaroos, those are fine too. Wiki sticks are a little bit stickier than bendaroos. That's really the only difference. But so when we're teaching a child how to write and write their name, there's so many things at play when we're teaching them how to do that. Like, they have to have the tripod grasp, and they have to be able, to move the thing, because let's face it, if you put the pencil this way, you don't get the mark. They have to be able to hold it up properly, which is all this, muscle, which also means having the other hand in a place, right? Then there's the whole hand-eye coordination thing, and then remembering what's the symbol that I'm supposed to do. It's a lot for a little one with sensory issues and a lot of stuff going on. So Wiki Sticks makes this really easy. What you do is you take a piece of paper and you take your Wiki Sticks and you bend it into the shape of the letter, but it looks like the outline of the letter, right? You leave space in between in the shape that you've created, and you stick it to the paper. And I'm doing it in the shape of J, because that was the first letter of my son's name. So your Wiki Sticks looks like this. I don't know if you guys can see on the page. It looks like the outline of the letter. And what you do is you have them take their pencil or crayon and stick their thing in the groove that's made by the Wiki Stick, and all they have to do is go. So it's helping them to do the hand-eye coordination. It's very reinforcing for them, because then it looks really cool, their name, and you say, look, you wrote your name. It's so fabulous, right? You reinforce them for it. Sometimes they like to leave it with the Wiki Stick on. Some of them like to peel the Wiki Sticks off and look at how they wrote their name, and you put it on the refrigerator, and you praise them and reward them for having done their name. For kids that are older and already know that, by the way, there are tons of books that have designs on them for kids to draw lines. I just think that doing that by rote with no reinforcer, it's not fun for anybody, right? So make sure that if you're doing anything like that, that it's super duper fun. I find the Wiki Sticks, because you can lay them down and say, okay, we're gonna have a race. You put your crayon in your Wiki Stick, and I'm gonna put mine in mine, and we're gonna race to see who can get to the end, and who can, do sometimes it's wavy. You're building the hand-eye coordination. You can make it fun, folks. Don't make it boring and dry. Okay, now what about for older kids who already know how to do all that? They know how to write, but now we're getting into sentence structure. If there's no issue with the hand thing, there's a specific way of dealing with that. But if you're finding that you have an older kiddo and you're working on the hand thing, but it's coming along slow, and you still want to work on grammar and structure and whatever, they have those Build-A-Poem kits that it comes with a metal board and letters. And these were really popular like 20 years ago. People would put them on the refrigerator, and you'd come along and you'd make a sentence with the little magnetic letters. They're great for our kids. So, and you play with them where, you're each going to write a sentence. And because you're taking the handwriting out of it, they can build a sentence, right? And you can start with just, I want, and by the way, you can do this with kids who are nonverbal. These do not have to be verbal kids. And start with I want, and then they have to fill in the blank from the words that are there. And you're writing I want, and then you can start to be silly. We have this great game at home, which I don't think, I think if you can buy it now, you can only buy it used. But the truth is you could make it yourself. And it's called You've Been Sentenced. And it's basically that board, it's just cards. And you deal out the cards, and everybody has to make a sentence from the cards that they've been given. And it really, if you've got those older kids who are high functioning but just can't quite figure out how to structure a sentence, it's so funny, the sentences that people come out with from the things that they've been dealt. We laughed so long. So each, like there's words like I and he and it and should, but then there's other words. One of the words in the deck is sloppy, right? And one of them is dog and one of them is milk. And my husband, by the way, you get more points for the more cards that you use. And my husband made a sentence about something in the sloppy dog milk. And we laughed, because you can challenge and say that's not a sentence. What is sloppy dog milk? And we laughed about that. It's years later and we're still laughing about it, okay? So super fun, but giving them a way to put a sentence together without necessarily having to write, I really highly recommend it. And then making sure, for the older kids, making sure that they understand the very basics of grammar, because our kids respond to rules. So, you can play a game with them, and this is something that you can do in the car. You can play a game of, pick your rules, whatever it is that you're teaching them. Maybe you're teaching them punctuation this week. And you say, so we're just gonna work on, where do you put a period? Have you ever seen that guy on, the electric company, I think, or maybe he's on Sesame Street, I don't know, but he'll do a sentence and he'll have sounds for each one of the punctuations. So he'll say, I walked the dog for the period, right? There's a study that they did on teenagers, teaching them punctuation, where they gave a physicalization for each. So, this was a comma. And so I've done it with a classroom of kids that were in 8th grade. It's something you can do in the car. Just make sure you keep your hands on the wheel, right? But you can give your kids a sentence and have everybody in the car figure out what words and put physicalizations. You can look up the study, because I can't remember, but I think quotation marks were this and this was a comma and there was a specific thing. So in any case, make it fun, physicalize it, assign them colors, do whatever. For kids that are older, and if you are like, oh, Shannon, I just don't know how to do this, sign them up for a Khan Academy account and have them do either grammar or writing. You won't be sorry. Just reward them heavily for it. If you finish 2 modules of Khan Academy today, we will go for ice cream after dinner. Whatever it is, bribery works. And we want for our kids to grow during the summer. So everybody gets a paycheck, right? All right, we're running out of time. So I'm going to take a break, and then we're going to come back, and we're going to do the next 3 really quick. Stick with us.
Hard times lead to good choices. Many times you're going to find out that change is coming and it's not something that you like to see. Things sometimes just don't work. Sometimes you have to put your child in a new school. Sometimes you have to put them in a different classroom. Often you'll see this with perhaps special education versus regular education, or everyone's favorite, puberty. All bets are off then. However, these things happen when they need to happen. So making that hard choice is super, super scary. But when you open those doors to look at things that maybe you've never dreamed you would have to look at, you're going to find help that you never expected. There are a lot of people out there dealing with the same things that you are dealing with, and there is a level of help that you never even knew existed. So don't be afraid when it's time to look at the scary problems that you're having. When those things come up, when the aggression increases, when things are falling apart at home, when you're getting the calls from the schools, don't be afraid. Reach out, find out what you need to do. You might need to look at new schools, new housing, you might need to access new levels of service, but I am telling you, you're going to see amazing things. There are children that as they grow do things with the help of others, very specialized support, that you never thought they could do. So once you do that and you meet the child where he or she is and you give them what they need, everybody can do better and you're going to see amazing progress.
Okay, welcome back. We're doing the 5 tips to prevent summer slide and help our kids to get caught up. So we're at number 3, which is draw. Oh, this is my favorite one. What better time than during the summer than to reinforce drawing for our kids? And by the way, I know some of you are like, yeah, but I don't have that kid who's on the autism spectrum who's a great artist. And you know what I want to lovingly say to you? You don't know. You don't know, because sometimes they have skills that emerge later on, and sometimes it really depends on the medium. I have seen kids that were like, you know, I can't, like with a crayon, draw something, but if you give me pieces of paper to tear and make a collage, I can make it look like a parrot. And you go, whoa, what is that skill? So again, whatever age, whatever skill level, meet them where they are. So for babies and for little kids, having them use food to draw is perfectly acceptable. I've been to art classes where they throw a bunch of vanilla and chocolate pudding onto a piece of paper and they let the kids go to town. And the reason why they do it with pudding is because if the kid happens to stick something in their mouth, they're at that stage where they could do that, it's not going to harm them, assuming that they're not allergic to pudding, right? But you absolutely can do that, but letting them play in the textures of it. When I was a kid back in the day before we had toys, you know, in the dark ages, we made mud pies, right? And you know, that tactile sensation of it, really, really cool. So give them the opportunity and play with textiles. I love that on Pinterest they have so many things, projects for kids of all level, of all ability. Keep in mind that for all kids, the act of doing art isn't necessarily going to be reinforcing. Some kids are going to take to it and be like, this, you know, this is my passion. Other kids are going to be like, my son was always like, oh, I really want to do this. And he would sit down and he would draw 2 things and he would go, and I am done. Peace out, right? And that's okay too. Don't push it any further than where they're having a good time. But we do want to push them to do it for a little while, and we want to pair that with whatever is reinforcing, whatever reinforcer you need to put on. And for some kids, that's going to be, you know, headphones so that I get to tune out the noise. For other kids, it's going to be music that's playing, or some kids it's scents that you can diffuse an oil that they really particularly like and helps to mellow them. Some kids want to do art projects with other kids and some don't, right? But don't be afraid to play with mediums. One of my favorite things is taking inexpensive duct tape of different colors and newspaper, right? And you can even do this with magazines too. And if you want to, you can, before the kids come, set it up, and you take the newspaper and you roll them into tubes, like 2 or 3 pieces at a time, and you roll it into a tube. And you put just a little piece of tape so that it holds it into a tube. And then they take the newspaper and you show them how to do it. You take the duct tape, and basically it's like making balloon animals, but you're not, it's not a balloon, it's not going to pop, and you hold it in place with the duct tape. So you can make a giraffe out of it. You can make you know, a abstract sculpture out of it, but the material that you're using are these tubes. They're very flexible because it's only like 2 or 3 pieces of newspaper, and you can mold it into the shapes that you want. We have a whole series here on Autism Live that are called Smarty. It has its own playlist on our YouTube channel and also on our website, and it has activities for every month, and some, you can do April and November, right? And it links directly to things that you're working on and helps you to know whether you're working on a pincer grasp or whether you're working on hand skills or whether it's executive functions that you're working on. So I really encourage you to look at the Smarties. Don't be afraid to make a mess. And don't be afraid to praise your child no matter what their art project looks like. I was one of those parents that thought, oh, my kid's just not one of the art kids. But when he sits down and he does his 2 drawings, they're really good, and I let him know, you're an artist. Build their self-esteem. Drawing works on so many different things. It works on conceptualizing to go, from here to here. Great thing. Works on imagination. It works on pincer grasp. It works on sensory issues. Art is amazing. So have your kids draw. I also want to say too, if you've got older kids and you're looking to do something really exciting, there's a book called Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain. Whether you do the book and then transfer the information to them, or you have them do it with you side by side, it's filled with amazing exercises that actually help your child to be able to move something from the right side of their brain to the left side of their brain and back, and helps you to deal with anxiety that comes up at different times because of that transfer of information. It's fascinating. All right, we got a quick break and then we're coming back to do the other 2 really quick. Stick with us.
What is autism? What is autism?
What is autism?
What is autism?
What is autism?
What is autism?
I've been asking myself that for a very, very long time.
Let me think about that one.
Trying to just
Jeez. Let me think. Oh man, that's a big one. Yes.
Autism.
Autism is a neurological disorder that affects many of our kids in different ways.
It's a learning disability that affects the cognitive functions of the brain.
A lot of people have the misconception that it's a disability, and it's really not.
I look at it as like a special gift.
When one person thinks differently from another.
It's an opportunity for everyone to learn to understand someone that's a little different than them. Autism is the ability to educate.
They're given so much talent in different areas.
To me, autism means a chance to be with and be around people you really care about. Autism is beautiful.
It's a way of seeing the world differently.
It's always unique, totally intelligent, and sometimes mysterious.
Happiness that comes out of my son's hard work.
Is a movement.
Unpredictable.
That's right.
Awesome. Love. The field I want to work in.
Laughter, fun, joy. Autism is beautiful to me.
I want you to remember these 3 words. There is hope.
Okay, welcome back. We're only going to have time to get through 4, and we're going to have to do 5 on Monday because my time management skills need work, right? But number 4 is build. Build, 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 build. Now, again, small kids, blocks. You get the blocks and you build them up and everything is fabulous and you are creative with it and you smash them down and then you build them in different ways. Build forts, build pillow forts, take sheets and towels and build them inside and outside, build tents. When you build, you're working on executive function, time planning, all the things that I need to work on. But you're building creativity as well. For kids that are older, like, by the way, do Duplos with the small kids, but make sure you do it in a lot of different ways and build those pillow forts, right? For kids that are older, get some Legos, and it doesn't have to be the kits. I honestly feel like this, just the general box of Legos. And sometimes you can get those at garage sales, run them through the dishwasher so that they're nice and clean, put them on the top shelf, put them in like a pantyhose so that they're not going everywhere in the dishwasher, run them through the dishwasher so they're good and clean, and play, right? But also for STEM activities, look on Pinterest, but taking pasta, all different kinds of pasta, and having kids build how tall they can do. That's a STEM activity. They actually have contests for that. So don't be afraid to try different mediums and to make it fun and make races and things to do that. We're out of time. I'm going to have to finish build on Monday as well. I just adore you guys, and I thank you for having the time to be with me. It's such a privilege for me. Summer's going to be great because we're going to take it on and we're going to learn all kinds of things. Don't forget Khan Academy, Khan. We're almost out of time, but I just want to thank you. We'll be back on Monday. Great shows all next week, and we have Dr. Dorian Granpeesheh next week. So you're going to want to tune in for that, and you can be sending your questions in now. I thank you for being here. I'll see you on Monday. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me. Bye-bye for now.